Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Brady Grove with Rotoballer's official MMA podcast, Tap That, bringing you an interlude episode today because, embarrassingly, I recorded the UFC 273 Picks podcast episode 58 last night, thinking it was this Saturday as opposed to next Saturday. That'll be coming out in the middle of next week, and I think it's pretty much up to date, and I stand by every pick I made. But today, we have a very special interlude episode. You guys know I've been trying to expand the boundaries of this show, talk about the sports world as a greater landscape. With me today, my fraternity brother from back in the day. I've got a lot of good memories with this guy, a lot of neutral memories as well. He's working in the world of women's basketball, doing a lot. We're going to get into what he's doing because it's very interesting. Daniel Segal. What's up, Daniel? Good to hear from you, man.
What's up, man? How are you?
So where are you right now? Like, are you in Louisville?
Yeah, I'm in Louisville. I'm currently at my parents' house. And yeah, just kind of in the off season at the moment.
All right, so for obviously, I'm looking at your LinkedIn page right now. So starting off for folks who don't know, what were you doing this past year in SEC women's basketball?
So this past year, I was the video coordinator for the Mississippi State women's basketball team. So I kind of just helped out with all the coaching staff with their scouting reports and getting them film from each of the games and cutting it up just how they would like, just so kind of cutting out all the like dead time and stuff that they don't really need to see or want to see. And so kind of just helping making their jobs easier.
I mean, that any sort of video coordination, especially in SEC women's basketball, like what were some of the challenges of the position because it's such a competitive conference.
Yeah, it was it's a lot of juggling and you got to be extremely organized. And so that's one of the main things that I one of the first things that I learned when I first got into the business is just kind of how to organize all the stuff that you have, because you have literally like a couple terabytes of just different videos and games and players and all that. So you got to keep it all organized to know where it all is, and because the coaching staff will ask you so many different types of questions, and you got to just be able to get stuff like just like that to them. So I mean, it was I would say organization is a big thing, but I mean, just kind of juggling everything that the coaching staff wants, because it's a pretty fast paced environment. So I mean, you got to kind of be able to work on the fly, I would say, because you might be doing one thing for 45 minutes working hard on it, but then you might have to just kind of scrap it and start something else new because they might need something completely different.
Now I'm looking at your LinkedIn page and your employment history, and you've done stints with the Indiana Fever during the summer of 2021. You were a marketing assistant and assistant basketball coach with Grand River Academy in Austinburg, Ohio. And you were an operations assistant and advanced video scout with Global Sports Analytics. So take me through like each of those three positions and what you did in each of them, and what made each of them unique.
Yeah, it was super interesting. So I was a business major in college when we were at Kentucky. I was a marketing and management double major. So I actually in college did nothing dealing with video, funny enough. And so I basically, like, right when I got out of college, I essentially just like wanted to I knew I kind of wanted to work in sports. And so I was trying to like figure out what to do. And I feel like I don't know, you'd heard a bunch of stories kind of about video coordinators and whatnot, and being able to make it in different sports and whatnot. So I felt like that was a pretty good avenue. And so when I was at Louisville, um, sorry, Brady, can you ask me the question again? I'm so sorry. You got this person.
So that was what Eric Spoelstra did, right? Was video coordination for the Heat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, let's go back just one summer to when you were a video assistant with the Fever. So what was that like, and what made it unique from working in the college game? Now looking back.
I mean, it was great. I got to work really, really closely with Tamika Catchings, which was amazing because for those that don't know, Tamika Catchings is one of the greatest women's basketball players ever. She was a national champion at Tennessee and WNBA champion and WNBA MVP. And so
Oh,
one of the best players ever. And so I got to work extremely close with her, which was honestly just a dream come true. And so I don't know, the pro game versus the college game, it's very different. I would say, in the college game, you're very hands-on because you're having to worry about not only what the players are doing on the court, but you're also having to worry about what they're doing off the court in terms of their um, academics, and you're kind of like keeping tabs on them really at all times. And that was with the Fever was kind of where I really discovered how different the pro game is, because I mean, we would go, for instance, on like a road trip, and after the game, you would have to figure out like which players are going to fly home with us or which players are going to get their own travel. And so like that was kind of a foreign concept to me, because obviously when we were in college, like, and you would fly, the whole team would go there together, fly home together. But here it was like the pro players could do whatever they wanted. And so it was like, just make sure you're home for practice when we have it in 2 days. So that's what they would tell them after the games. And so that's kind of like where I realized there's a lot more freedom within the pro game, and it's kind of just the whole nature of it.
well, so was it I didn't know that about the travel accommodations at the pro level. Was it the New York Liberty that just got like in trouble for or maybe I forget how long ago this was, but for like getting a private charter like for the whole team to travel?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I honestly don't know too much about it, but yeah, basically, I guess their president, Joseph Tsai, who he's the president of the Nets and the Liberty, and he had wanted to, or he had the funds to provide his team, I guess, private charter. And they had even tried to figure out a way to provide the whole league with private charter, but I guess in some type of fashion, the league kind of shot down the idea in and it is kind of weird. But yeah, the whole travel situation is really interesting, because they fly like commercial just like you and I would. And I actually haven't necessarily been a part of a WNBA road trip uh quite yet. I've been on part of a bus trip, but for instance, when I was with Mississippi State this past year, their travel is completely different than the pros, because when I was with Mississippi State, uh, we would fly charter. So we would have our own, I guess, like 30 to 40 to 50 person plane. And I mean, we had so much leg room. Like we had probably like, I mean, it was there for really big players. So, I mean, I thought it was a lot of leg room at least. I'm kind of smaller, but I mean, like I could stretch out on that plane that we had for Mississippi State completely. But like I said, with the WNBA teams, they fly a commercial just like you and I would. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's funny because both of us combined, we might be like 11 feet tall, stacked on top of each other, but I don't think anybody
Right.
walked across campus faster than us with our heads down.
That's a fact. That's a fact. We are some pretty fast walkers.
You got to move the legs faster. So, but like, so I guess for people that aren't aware, like, take like Sabrina Ionescu. So in the WNBA, like, she has her choice of like how to travel to each game.
No, so basically after the game, um, you are free to go do whatever you want. But for the game, I believe you would travel with the team. Um, but after the game, you're free to, like, I guess, go wherever you want. You just have to make sure that you're back for practice whenever you have it next time, or I guess if you don't have practice, whenever your next team obligation is.
And so I guess in what you picked up in that time, what are some details you've noticed that the actual way the game is played at the WNBA level differs from the way it's played at the college level? Because it seems like those differences were really stark in the men's game across the different levels. and now it's kind of getting to where you're seeing a lot of college teams, or down to even the high school or middle school level, chucking up 40-foot threes and whatnot, and it always seems to catch up and evolve. So, what are some of the differences that you've noticed in the pro and college game for women's basketball?
I would say, I mean, naturally, as you go level by level, from high school to college to pros, in both men's and women's, I mean, the players are just more skilled. And so, I mean, the players in the WNBA are just incredible. And so, like, they are just able to process the game so much faster. And like you said, like you're nowadays, like Steph Curry, because of Steph Curry, you're seeing kids just jack up 30, 40 footers, but like these WNBA players are actually able to, hit some 20, 30, even 40 footers, with some consistency. Whereas, I mean, in college and in high school, it'd be pretty tough to find that. And so, yeah, I mean, the players in the WNBA, they're just so highly skilled that you're able to kind of have a lot more, they're able to have a lot more freedom with their game, and you're able to try, a lot more different types of things.
Did you get to catch the college basketball 3-point and dunk contest last night?
I saw like Ryan Howard in it, but I honestly did not.
No, it's just like one, they never advertised that event, and I always like to watch it, and they'll replay it 1,000 times in between now and June when there's only baseball on for the most part. But now, like the shooting at the top level of women's college basketball always blows my mind. And many years, they always pit the women's winner and the men's winner against each other, and most of the years that I've seen, the women's college basketball 3-point contest winner ended up beating the men's winner. And it's crazy in a time when people are, more excited for women's sports than ever before and looking, for the areas where the quality is really on the come up. It seems like that event and that aspect of basketball has been like highly passed over by people. It seems like it never gets that much attention.
Yeah, no, I am usually one to watch that event actually. But I mean, like you said, the quality of play of women's basketball is very much increasing, and like the skill level like that I've been fortunate enough to see up close is just incredible. And like, I mean, I would hate to be like a practice player. Like we have male practice players for like college and even in the pros that are very, very essential, because I mean, you don't want to necessarily put too much I guess mileage on even any athlete, professional athletes legs with, unnecessary um like play and practice or whatnot. So we have practice players just to kind of help alleviate that. But like, I would hate to be a practice player to have to vend these girls, because like they're killers. And like, I mean, I would probably fall just on my butt probably, or something like that, just embarrass myself, because these players are incredible and they can do some stuff that, I mean, you wouldn't believe. And you're
And,
seeing some girls, I don't know if you saw the high school dunk contest for the McDonald's All-American game, but I think it was Ashlyn Watkins, I want to say. I don't want to get her name wrong, but she won the dunk contest. I think she's like 6'2", and she committed to South Carolina. And she won the McDonald's All-American dunk contest.
isn't she the one that had that like viral posterizing video where it looked like it was like actually the craziest dunk by a women's basketball player I've ever seen? Like the vertical leap. I mean, I've never seen anything parallel that in women's college, even dating back to when Candace Parker won the dunk contest in the McDonald's All America game. It was not the same level of athletic ability. And Candace Parker is probably one of my top two female basketball players of all time. But I mean, the athleticism also it really seems to be catching up.
Absolutely. And I mean, like I said, she's committed to South Carolina, and they're in the SEC, which I was fortunate enough to work in this past year. And being able to see each of those SEC teams up close and personal, I mean, they have some absolute athletes. And like I believe the SEC in women's college basketball is probably the most quality basketball you're gonna see, and it is just incredible. And like, I mean, South Carolina, with that chick that I mentioned earlier committing, like they might have 5, 6, 7 girls that can dunk on their team. Uh, and like I think just as any other sport or any other, like, as time goes on, athletes are evolving. And I think you're only going to see that throughout the women's college basketball game. And I mean, sooner or later, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, a dunk in a women's college basketball game might be just the norm.
And South Carolina just had the AP Player of the Year, Aaliyah Boston, and we've really seen a changing of the guard in SEC women's basketball. We were used to, for so long, it being Connecticut and Tennessee were the only two real competitors for a very long time for the NCAA title. And now South Carolina has been, unstoppable over the last few years. I mean, the talent level too. It really is what like the early years of John Calipari at Kentucky felt like, where it's like, dude, how can this amount of talent amass on one college campus for one team?
Oh, absolutely. It's incredible. What Dawn Staley has done. She's amazing. I mean, I think she has a pretty good podcast herself, and I was listening to her podcast, and she mentioned that she has like 12, 13 McDonald's All-Americans on her team. And so yeah, I mean, that's no different than like what you said, what the early John Calipari teams were like. And yeah, she can just accumulate talent like it's nothing. And yeah, they're definitely a national power, no doubt.
And Dawn Staley seems to have captured a lot of people's attention for like her personality and charisma as well. It's like we always were used to the Muffin McGraws, the Gina Oriamas, the Pat Summits, who had this aura of greatness about her. But Dawn Staley seems to have captured people's attention in ways that a lot of coaches have not in the past.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely agree. I think those, like central pillars are like you mentioned, like the Gino Oriemas or the like the Tara Vanderveers at Stanford. They're important, and so like she has definitely cemented herself as one of those types of people in our our new age of women's basketball. And I mean, she's so important, definitely like growing the game. Because I mean, it's crazy to me with like how the level that we're at with women's sports and women's basketball, and specifically talking like women's college basketball, like we're at such a high level in terms of like the quality of our game, and even the following of our game. And honestly, like there hasn't been a crazy amount of like marketing or anything done. And so imagine what will happen when people are actually putting the resources towards promoting the game the way it should be, just similarly to the way we promote our men's sports. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, the women's game is only gonna keep growing. And I mean, like, yeah, it's only gonna go up from here.
And that's the thing. And to tie this back into MMA and the UFC, and it's something that not even boxing does. Why are the UFC's female fighters such big stars as compared to other sports? Because they're put on the same pedestal, they're put on the same level and on the same platform. They're headlining pay-per-view events. People are shelling out that amount of money to buy pay-per-views and getting together with a bunch of their friends and ordering wings for the night because Amanda Nunes is headlining the card.
Right. And yeah, no, Amanda Nunes, Ronda Rousey, and like they were given the same amount of promotion that a Conor McGregor or you know, Usman or anybody would get. And yeah, I absolutely agree that, I mean, once it gets to that point that we're, telling the stories and promoting the women's UFC fighters the same, I mean, their their popularity will only grow from there.
Yeah, they do the same things. And, it's like in golf. there's still different parameters and different rules for how the men and women play. I think really takes a lot away from the respect that those athletes really deserve. And you're right. And Rhonda is the one who changed everything, because Dana White famously declared at one point that women would never be in the UFC. And Ronda Rousey changed his mind. It's not that he definitely flip flopped, but it's because Ronda Rousey opened the door of possibilities to him. She became a rock star, and it
Mhm.
helped the UFC reach a demographic that they were never going to reach when they were putting all their shows on Spike TV in 2006. Now the women fighters, they had so many seasons of The Ultimate Fighter where stars came out of. It's not necessarily that certain things have changed. It's that certain people came along and showed that, like, oh, like, women do like the UFC. Women do like MMA. We've been ignoring 50% of the population for this long, and especially over the pandemic. I think it helped the UFC make up a huge gap in what was in between them and other pro sports organizations.
Yeah, and like you said, like she was a rock star just the same way Conor McGregor was. Like anybody could, get behind her. Anybody would want to watch her just because she was so entertaining. And like, I mean, she could garner the same amount of sponsorships or whatever that any male uh could. And I mean, it's all about putting um I get, like you said, like Dana White or whoever is in charge, putting the UFC in position to keep attracting those different types of demographics. And I mean, like, um, and same for like women's basketball. I mean, you gotta keep trying to get eyes. And I see more and more people, betting on like women's college basketball. I'm not specifically one of them. I'm actually not allowed to do so uh, for the NCAA rules. But like for instance, like there's W or women's college basketball betting lines now. And I mean, if you would have told someone that um even 5 years ago, they would have told you you're crazy.
Yeah, that's it. And so let's get into how the landscape of amateur sports has changed, and it happened in the blink of an eye. It was like one day, no NIL. The next day, NIL, and the common narrative. I say this a lot because it's so funny in retrospect. Everybody was like, "Well, how many people, how many college athletes that really going to affect? Like the top three, maybe you'll get some endorsement deals, but other like no one's going to be paying like a Nebraska women's volleyball player. Nope, wrong, 100% wrong.
Right.
It has changed college sport. Do we have Olympians doing SEC gymnastics now, which they never would have done a year ago? There was no reason for them to. Now they make more money doing that than they did winning a gold medal in the Olympics.
No, it's absolutely incredible. And I mean, like you said, like you would never have thought like, oh, someone would say, like, why would I pay this Nebraska volleyball player? Well, this Nebraska volleyball player has hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot, and they're actually super valuable and maybe even more valuable than your favorite men's college basketball player. And I think I saw a recent tweet. I forget what it was, but they basically kind of like did a holistic evaluation of different college athletes and their NIL value. And like the two highest values were Paige Beckers of UConn women's basketball and Haley Van Lith of Louisville women's basketball. And I think they were like 5 times more valuable than say like a Chet Holmgren of Gonzaga men's basketball.
Well, yeah, his face isn't very marketable. I'll give him that. And
Right.
showing his dad in the stands can only hurt his marketability. But no,
Camera.
but no, I think Olivia Dunn was supposed to make like $5 million this year. Like it was like the top five earners in college sports this year were going to be female athletes. Boom! In the blink of an eye, the landscape of amateur athletics has been flipped on its head.
Right. No, it's an incredible opportunity for a bunch of different athletes, and it's I mean it's unfortunate that it just happened now, but it's awesome that it did, and it's given a lot of different people different opportunities that they would have never even imagined. Like you saw Doug Eddard of St. Peter's,
Yeah.
he got a Buffalo Wild Wings sponsorship, and I mean, if you would have, I mean, like 2 weeks ago, that kid was like, they had like what 15 wins and we're fighting for an NCAA tournament bid, and now he's in the Sweet 16 Elite Eight and has a Buffalo Wild Wings sponsorship. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, I wish he didn't have to find that through like off the back of a horrible upset over Kentucky. But I mean, yeah, and
Oh, yeah, sorry, I had to bring that up. That's my bad.
nah, it's
That's our alum.
yeah, it's. I mean, it's all good because like in football this year, like, dude, as Kentucky lost as a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament to a 15 seed, but the Bengals went to the Super Bowl and Kentucky football had another double-digit win season. I'm living in a twilight zone.
Yeah, no, life doesn't really make a whole lot of sense right now. And gas prices are like $6.
Dude, that's it. I said the other day, I was like, I forgot that people were still getting COVID. And I said, you know what? As soon as gas prices start going up, people forget every single other problem that they have at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we got a whole lot going on, don't we?
Okay, so oh, what did I have? So like in your time around the Mississippi State team, from what, how do you think that like NIL opportunities have kind of changed the way that they look at their opportunities in the sport, and how has it changed recruiting? Because I'm sure it's changed. I know it has changed recruiting massively.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you can even in Mississippi, like there are local opportunities, like the local coffee shop or the local donut shop could find that they want to sponsor, one of your players or something. And it's not just the national type stuff that people are getting opportunities to do. And I mean, it's huge in recruiting because if you're in a city or in kind of like a hotbed where there are lots of opportunities, then I mean, why wouldn't a kid want to go to a school with more opportunities for them, to expand their brand and get their name out there and obviously make a little bit of money. And I mean, it's opened up a whole bunch of doors and a whole bunch of different opportunities that I mean, there's so many ways and this could go that I mean for instance Adidas, they just opened up their own NIL platform where now all
Yep.
the Adidas schools and their athletes, they can become influencers um and there's just so many different types of ways that kids can benefit off of this. It's an incredible opportunity, an incredible day and age for the modern student athlete.
And then it's, I mean, that's even weirder now, like, because coaches across different sports are under FBI investigation for things that, like, technically now they're allowed to do. But it's, it's something that you would think bigger schools would favor, and you immediately, without knowing the implications, you think, oh, well, Alabama football is going to get even more powerful. They have all the resources and all the money. The eyes are on them. People are going to want to go there. But it seems to have done the opposite. There is now so much more incentive to go play for instance, Deion Sanders at Jackson State, or to go to North Dakota State and play football. And there's a lot more reason now to go play for VCU basketball because you can be the headliner and you're the guy in that area, and there's opportunities for you. You're not going to be lost in the mix. But on the other hand, with the transfer portal now you have the formation of almost like super teams. Like Kansas, Remy Martin's their sixth man. He's like a microwave scorer for them when he was putting up like 18 a game for Arizona State. So I really think it's been like quite an equalizer. And, Kentucky, we've always been a team that we don't utilize everybody. And you could argue that some players don't get their fair shot if they're not a 5-star recruit. And they're transferring now and they're finding success. The freedom and the opportunity seems to have really contributed to the quality across the board in every sport.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of look at it like, I always have used the old adage like for like scouting or just like, any like athlete, like no matter where you are, like if you're talented, like they'll find you, meaning like the pros or whoever, I'm saying. And I guess that can kind of tie into anything. Like if you're talented at making TikToks, or like if you're talented at getting people to notice you on like say a social media, and what I'm saying, like that's valuable. And like if you're, like you said, like if you're at North Dakota State or Jackson State, but you're going viral on some type of social media, like someone will find you valuable, someone will be able to, help you out, and you'll be able to help them out, help them expand their brand, and you'll benefit off of it. And it's incredible.
And it's kind of like how Elvis's career mixed with the rise of television. It's in this era we have had the mixture of NIL, the transfer portal, and the fact that I can go on ESPN Plus and watch a basketball, or I can go on ESPN Plus and watch a Morehead State Murray State baseball game at 2 in the afternoon today. And there's scouting and recruiting services they're all over the internet where you can subscribe and watch junior college or community college basketball games. Thomas More from Northern Kentucky actually just went to the NAIA Final Four, and there were places where you could watch that for free. You can watch everything now, and now guys that are JUCO transfers, it seems like they're, you know. I mean, like, look at Jay Scrub. When he's supposed to go to Louisville before
He was supposed to go to Louisville. He's from Louisville, went to Trinity High School, and but then went to John Logan, and got an opportunity to declare out of junior college.
It's just that's so wild that's always been the case in the MLB draft, because they always had like 50 rounds. But now you don't have to worry about not being seen. Maybe you need to worry about getting lost in the fray, because if you can watch everybody, it's really hard to watch everybody. But you can be seen now. There's media everywhere that's covering every sporting event, because why they figured out that people wanted to watch it. There was a demand for sports at that level. From it's created almost like these micro economies of like, there's youth volleyball teams all over the country, and their coaches want those players to be able to watch. It's they want them to be able to watch the highest level of college volleyball. It helps them to see college female athletes that are advertising a product. It one problem they always talk about is how early in life women stop playing sports, and you got to think that this is a huge part of the solution to that. Daniel, you're muted, I think.
Sorry, I was muted. I think it's an interesting opportunity. I mean, they're coming up with so many different new opportunities for, like you said, for women to keep playing sports. Like they just came up with a league. It's called Athletes Unlimited, and it's kind of like an umbrella league where they have like volleyball and basketball leagues for women, like professionally, to keep playing for money. And it's have you heard about that by chance?
Yeah, I see it on I think CBS Sports Network.
Right. Yeah. And it's like it's it was created like the basketball side of things was created by some different WNBA players. And they got other WNBA players and other, former college players to join this league. And it's kind of garnered a decent backing to where, I mean, I'm sure they're going to keep it going. And it's an opportunity for and it doesn't interfere with the WNBA season, for instance. And so it's an opportunity for WNBA players after the season to stay in America and keep making money, because with the WNBA season, it really only takes up about 4 months out of the year. And so a bunch of the WNBA players have to go overseas for the rest of the year to, just keep making money because they don't necessarily have other basketball opportunities here in the States. And so, like I just mentioned, the Athletes Unlimited League gives those players possible opportunities to keep playing basketball here, domestically. And if it keeps growing, who knows what could happen,
Yeah, and as we've seen lately, there can be some problems for athletes traveling through Russia.
Right.
So let's talk about the influx of sports gambling too, because I mean, and the Calvin Ridley thing kind of brought this to the forefront, because there hasn't been a point shaving scandal or a match fixing scandal in American pro sports really since like the early 2000s is the last confirmed one you can really find. But the thing about Calvin Ridley, and when you look through the history of point shaving and match fixing scandals, and it's really hard to blame any athletes that got involved with that because they were influenced by organized crime a lot of the time or financial desperation. A lot of people get into that because they're in debt, and so how are schools trying to address the fact that sports is going to have to live and coexist with sports gambling because it turns out that the demand for sports gambling again is far in excess of anything that we ever expected. So what are some of the schools in college athletics and amateur athletics, what are they what if anything are they doing to address the fact that they're going to have to coexist with this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
like because of the ubiquity of sports gambling, there's you can do it from anywhere. It's not just between your friend cash exchange off the books. People now are gambling on it. Saved certain sports. I think it could,
Hmm.
it could be the single thing that saves baseball, ironically. And and as you said, there's now, betting lines all over the board for women's college basketball and the WNBA. And people really like to bet those, I think, because there's less public influence. So there's a lot of sharp money on those. And that can be a little more dangerous. And so for colleges, especially, and again, the Calvin Ridley thing really brought this to the front of everybody's minds. What is there anything that like the universities are doing to address the fact that they're going to have to coexist with gambling and to make sure that everybody from top to bottom is educated about how to coexist with sports gambling?
Yeah, I think that they're actively doing that. Like, for instance, I know that there were some schools, for instance, when Barstool was initially like announcing partnerships with different athletes, and athletes were able to call themselves like Barstool athletes. There were some schools that were hesitant and even did not allow their athletes to necessarily have like a partnership with the company because there's Barstool sports books out there now. And so I think are there are definitely people doing their research and trying to educate the athletes as much as they can. And hopefully the athletes themselves are also doing their due diligence before, signing off on doing any type of agreement or whatnot.
Well, so is it a thing like, I mean, obviously, there are rules that people involved in these things can't bet on sport. But is there? I mean, are there education programs? Are there like 1 hour seminars that people have to sit in on? To learn, learn about the difference in these things. I'm just curious because it seems like for so long the concept of sports gambling was taboo and it wasn't talked about. The idea that someone may not have known what the lines are, I don't think was crazy, at least until now when this is plastered all over the place.
No, like when I was at Mississippi State, for instance, when I was at previous stops, the NIL wasn't in place quite yet. But like Mississippi State would specifically have different, presentations or talks or however you want to call it with our students to inform them on the various different you know, rules, outlines, um, guidelines, and just different parameters that they had to stay within. Um, and that from my specific experience, the schools where I were at definitely did a good job of informing the students of what they were and were not allowed to do.
It's crazy because I don't think, people that aren't crazy about sports history don't necessarily see what the big deal is. And it's like the influence of sports gambling, you can argue that it's one of the things that ruined boxing for a long period, and something that boxing really hasn't still recovered from. And you look at even dating back to the CCNY point shaving scandal in 1951. New York City was a mecca of college basketball. At the time, they had 4 teams ranked in the top 25, and since then, college basketball has never recovered. So it is something that really, as I love sports gambling and I love sports, and I'm fascinated by sports scandals. But when when something like between a partnership of gambling and sports, when the integrity of it is affected like that, it really does do damage to the progress of any individual sport or organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's definitely, I mean, why you got to keep the athletes informed, because you definitely don't want, you definitely don't want there to be any confusion or anything like that, to where an athlete could maybe get taken advantage of or anything like that.
Yeah, and it's like, I would love to think that we've seen the last point shaving scandal or match fixing scandal in any kind of sport, but it's hard to say that it would never happen again, because as long as there is a point guard that really needs money and they don't really see the harm in winning by 8 as opposed to 14, there's always the risk that it could happen again.
Is that gonna hurt your pockets, Brady?
It won't hurt mine. But I mean, you look at, I mean, it's been the reason that so many athletes have been blackballed. You know what I'm saying? Steven Headache Smith in that episode of Bad Sport from Arizona State, that guy was going to be a first round draft pick in a year where Jason Kidd was picked, and he only ever signed a 10-day contract with the Dallas Mavericks. It costs coaches their job. It makes a lot of people untouchable, and that's how they got a lot of athletes to fix things, is saying, I don't need you to lose this game. I just need you to win by 8. That's it. And so a lot of
But the root of all that was because he was short on money, and that was an opportunity for him to make money. But with the NIL, it allows kids to be able to have access to different sources of income. And so it won't necessarily put kids in the position where they have to feel like they do need to do that.
Yeah, you definitely hope so, because you hate to see anything like that, and you hate to see careers ruined. Oh, and by the way, did you see? So Maddie Sure, she was, I'm sure you know, McDonald's All American out of Ryle High School in Northern Kentucky. She's actually transferring from Oregon.
Oh yeah, I did. They had a couple of different transfers out of there. Yeah, I've been monitoring the transfer portal. It's been very hot and heavy, and getting even bigger.
Has the transfer portal become as has it become so much more a bigger like it's been a huge difference in men's college basketball. Have you guys seen a similar effect in how it's changed women's college basketball?
I mean, I'm sure it's the exact same. I mean, their kids are just able to, um, have more options, and I'm all for kids being able to have options.
Yeah, I think that it's led to a much more efficient allocation of resources.
Yeah,
You
it just makes a lot more sense. I mean, the coaches, they can up and leave whenever they want, so the kids should probably have some freedom as well.
yeah, you're no longer stuck under Bobby Knight or Mike Krzyzewski for 4 years if you don't want to be.
Right.
So to go back a little further, what was you were a marketing assistant, assistant basketball coach at Grand River Academy. What is Grand River Academy?
It was a prep school. It was kind of like a it's near Spire Academy where LaMelo Ball went. And they actually so like LaMelo Ball, like he went to Spire to play basketball, but he actually like Spire outsourced a lot of their schooling to Grand River. So like LaMelo Ball actually he graduated with like his schooling from Grand River Academy.
That's really, is that where that dude Rob Bobrovsky also went, the 7'6" dude?
He went to Spire, yeah.
That dude's at Rochester right now. I think that's either D3 or NIA. But like, dude, that's the other thing is that like some of these they get and you don't even know what they're doing, but you know who they are. Like that bald dude who was in high school a couple years ago, who I think ended up going to like. That's the thing too. Look at the increase in the marketability of HBCUs. Yeah, a couple years ago,
Absolutely.
you didn't really that acronym would have to be explained to people. And it no longer they've become a powerhouse in football and basketball recruiting across the board.
Yeah, no, I mean it's definitely given a bunch of people a lot of different new opportunities, and I'm all for it. I think I mean that the HBCUs, they're great institutions, and they definitely need to get a light shined on them. Like I think you saw the I think it was Michael B. Jordan that put on that HBCU Classic on TNT.
That was awesome.
It was so great. It was some great basketball games. But they definitely need a light shined on them a lot more. Because I mean, you got great coaches, great players, and I mean, I'm sure it's sooner rather than later that where you start seeing some of these top kids going to those schools for sure.
And to compare it to Kentucky, because I've been a Kentucky basketball fan my whole life, and you've been a Louisville fan your whole life, and they have blue blood pedigrees of basketball. But really, to compare it, dude, Kentucky's basketball environment at home is nothing compared to some of these small schools, man. I'd rather play Kentucky at Rupp Arena in a 50-50 game than play Kentucky State in Frankfurt, because it's a different level of passion from smaller fan bases. And I think it's something that Kentucky basketball has really lacked, but it's something that these smaller schools are really benefiting from now. Is that these smaller environments and these places that love their local team, they're getting more opportunities to actually succeed now. The playing field is so much more level. And the only place now to see it happen is in college football, where I would really like to see the playoff expanded.
Yeah, I mean, some of these smaller arenas, they provide some really great environments. It's definitely can get pretty intense in some of those, tight little spaces. You kind of like in those small environments. You sound like one of those one of the Kentucky boosters that don't want any suites, or they don't want to change the uniforms.
Uniforms, you can change them however you want. I think that, I mean, like I'd rather us just go back to our 1996 uniforms with those like fake hat scratches on the shorts and like that denim uniform we were for some reason playing with. But no, it's like Kentucky. I mean, Rupp Arena can just get so quiet because there's like students make up 1% of the people that are in that building.
Mhm.
It's like in the SEC, if we're playing on the road, I do not want to play. It's always a problem to play Vandy or Arkansas. It's a claustrophobic environment. And I love when we play games at Memorial Coliseum. I think that has there's something to environments that, especially in 2022, feel like they're far less touched by corporate and outside influence.
Yeah, no, we actually played at Arkansas this past season, and it was crazy environment. I was for some reason, I swear it was like Kids Day in Arkansas, and so there was just tons of kids, and honestly, it was so dang loud. It was a lot.
But so, like at Grand River, I mean, with that kind of, I mean, with guys like LaMelo Ball that are, coming through, or at least in the area, the way you
We
explained.
actually had Dababa Shibwe at and he was at Spire, but he would go to school at Grand River, and I actually coached him in a all-star game.
So, like, what's the difference, like, at that level when, that's, that's a level technically below college, but all those athletes are thinking about what's next for them and what, trying to map out their future in the sport. So what are some of the differences that you notice there?
It was like it's a prep school actually. So it's like a high school slash like you can take like a post grad year. Um
Oh, okay.
and so we actually had like kids from like Africa and Serbia and also different places in the US. So it was definitely interesting to get to work with those kids. And it definitely was a place where I got to have more of a voice and kind of more hands-on experience coaching. It's a very good experience. And I got to work closely with former D1 assistant Dawood Abdur He's like and his son actually played for Michigan. His name was Muhammad Abdur He
Oh yeah.
actually, when they played Villanova in the national title game, he had like, I think he might have had like 30 points. But they lost, I think, by
Right.
a solid amount. But no, it was great getting to work with those guys, and I learned a lot from them. And they're my very good friends, and I still talk to them to this day.
And you work with Tony Tucker there too, right?
Yeah, he was a former NBA scout for the Hornets, and he early in their careers he worked out with Kevin Garnett and Chauncey Billups. And so I felt like it was a great I at the like when I was trying to explore different opportunities, and I sounded like a good opportunity just to continue working in basketball. And so I kind of was like I they gave me like place to live and food to eat, and I got to just keep doing basketball. So that was I sounded good to me, and so I was there for about half a year or so. Um and Yeah, from there I went to the WNBA. So it was definitely a great little I was very thankful that for my time there for sure.
And so the international influence, and that's something that you got experience with as an advanced video scout for global sports analytics too. Uh, I think it's one reason that basketball and MMA in such short time of being a major pro sport, an accepted and acknowledged pro sport, I think it's why they grow so quick is they have such a greater international influence because I think there's three sports that seem to be international languages: soccer, basketball, and MMA. Every country on earth has a pro basketball league, some form of combat sports, and they probably play soccer. So the
Mm.
talent pool is a million times bigger than you get in a lot of other sports.
Yeah, I just took a really big liking to international basketball. Like you said, I worked for as an advanced video scout for global sports analytics. So I kind of just got to like be an extension of some coaching staffs essentially in like Germany, Belgium, and Spain for men's professionals. So that was really interesting. And I just took a liking to it because like obviously it's a whole new world out there, and a lot of people don't necessarily um greatly understand the international game, and especially they don't necessarily they can't grasp, I guess, some of the translatability from the game over there to the professional level here in the in the NBA. And through my time just being able to watch it a bunch, I almost I like evaluating prospects from the international game, uh, maybe even more than college, because I just see it as like an opportunity to see them against grown men. And so like I think the international game is incredible, and I mean it's only growing. And I mean now you see that half the NBA All Stars are international players, and the past three MVPs or international players. And so I mean it's only going to grow from here, and it's a really interesting little spot within the sports world.
And it's a sport like baseball is so slow to develop. We're only seeing, prospects from like the Australian pro leagues in Germany and Italy, kind of recently and real sparse. But In MMA and basketball, I'm always fascinated by the prospects from Nigeria, Senegal, Cameroon, the Ivory Coast. And it's one of my main criticisms of Kentucky basketball is our lack of international recruiting presence, where you see schools like Gonzaga bringing in European players that, shoot 45% from three. And we have not had that. We have not had that in a very, very long time, arguably ever.
No, I agree that I think that the teams that are taking advantage, like college teams that are taking advantage of the international pool of players, are the ones that are truly likely gonna, they're gonna see the benefits of it down the road. Because I mean, the talent pool there in any country is likely just as good as the talent pool here in America. And I mean, yeah, I completely agree. Like you said, the Gonzagas of the world, the Arizonas of the world. I mean, there's a bunch of different, the Creightons of the world. They're the ones that are kind of more so at the forefront of the college game in terms of using international talent. But more teams soon will follow suit, no doubt.
Yeah, I forgot. Arizona had like 7 international players from like 4 different continents
Mhm.
on their team. But all right, Dan, we've put in about an hour so far. I've one last question for you. Do you have a word of advice for anybody that might be at their school's respect a business major across the country who wants to do what you do? Because I have to say, you when I go down your LinkedIn profile, man, you're living the dream. You're living the absolute dream. If someone, what word of advice would you have for somebody that would want to do what you do down the line?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would just say, um, if you find something that you really like, um, don't be scared to take a risk, um, especially early on. I mean, I'm only 24. Um, and when I graduated college, I was 20, I guess 21, 22. Um, and I had accepted a job to be like kind of like a logistics analyst. And like I literally the day before I was supposed to start my job, I just like told him I wasn't gonna come because I was like I couldn't necessarily see myself like in a cubicle, I guess, the rest of my life. And the reason I did it then was because like now in your early 20s is the time to be able to take those type of risks, and because like, if I did accept that job and I had gotten, that quick, what, like 50, $60,000, and I'd done that for a couple of years, it'd be hard to leave that money on the table to then, making way, way, way less than that. And so I would just say, don't be afraid to necessarily take risks, especially early on. Because I mean, those are like your risk averse years of your life, those between your ages of like 20 and 30, like you should be able to, take a risk. And if it doesn't work out, you're fine. Just go back to what you know. But there's no shame in failing a couple times. And you know, you just gotta, take a risk because you never know what'll happen.
Yes, I too don't know if I could see you in a cubicle for too long. But yeah,
Yeah, I'm too fidgety. I
that yeah, it's like when people get married or have kids and get a house or whatever. It is really hard to break from those and jump out of the routine that you build up for 30 years. But no, that sounds like fantastic advice. And so, Daniel, thanks a lot for being here with us today. This was a great conversation. I learned a lot. I know people listening have learned a lot. Is there anything else you want to say? Anybody you want to shout out? Anything like that?
No, I appreciate you having me on. What you're doing is really great and really smart, and I appreciated you, and it was fun.
Great to talk to you again, man. It's awesome to hear what you're doing. That's a lot of fun. And folks, this has been another Tap That Interlude episode, ever expanding our boundaries, talking about the entire universe of sports. With me today was Daniel Segal. Really appreciate him being here. And folks, I was wrong about what when UFC 273 was. It's been that kind of period of weeks. But we will be back with picks for UFC 273 next week. Business as usual. Have a great weekend. Peace.
Go Cards.